This is the Shadow Systems CR920P.
This is the Shadow Systems CR920P. It is the latest addition from the Shadow Systems lineup. What makes it so special? It's actually this right here. That is a compensator specifically designed around the CR920. So I've been carrying this for about a month now, and I've put about 650 rounds through it so far, and my experience has been actually really good. I got a lot more out of this than I thought I would, and to be honest, I didn't know if the compensator was going to be a gimmick or something that actually made a difference, especially compared to the CR920, which when I first tried that out, not only did it kind of sting my hand every time I shot it, but it was extremely flippy.
Flippy?
Snappy, yeah.
Painful.
That stung my hand every time I shot it, and it had a lot of recoil. Shooting this has been a completely different experience. The compensator has actually mitigated all of the bad things about the CR920. Not only does it not sting when you shoot it, but it stays extremely flat and helps you keep on target the entire time. So first off, there is a break-in period for this gun. I got through about 50 rounds of just constant fire once, and then it ended up jamming, or I ended up getting a misfeed. And that continued on for the first 50 rounds or so. After about 100 rounds, we started to see about 2 to 3 rounds before it kept jamming up and wanting to misfeed. After that 100 rounds, that's where things started to smooth out. And between that 100 to the 650 that I've gone through so far, it has been phenomenally smooth. I haven't had a single issue with it. I did break it down and clean it right about at that 250, 300 round mark, which we will talk about that a little bit later. But so far, so good, but just keep that in mind that there is a break-in period with this. I was using 115 grain standard brass ammunition. We actually used Magtech and Fiocchi, so it was nothing special. There was no 124 grain, which I know some compensated pistols, you should use 124 grain just because it runs better, but overall, I'm very impressed. So like I said, I've been carrying this for about a month now, and it has actually been really nice to carry. There is one thing I will talk about though, and that is the grip texture. Now, usually, I like a really aggressive grip texture, but when carrying, especially having that rub against my bare stomach, it has been kind of a nuisance. I ended up actually putting some tape around there just to help mitigate some of the rash that was happening from that. You can get a holster that has somewhat of a guard on there, but even with that guard, the handle itself is still sticking out. So the guard is really only gonna protect me from the heat, which this gun definitely can heat up really fast with its size. Do you want to see my belly rash? Belly rash. The trigger feel, it's pretty standard to all Shadow Systems triggers, but it is still somewhat similar to Glock. There is something here that I just wish was a little bit better. I wish there was more refinement in this trigger. I feel like there's still some squish in there. I feel like there's plenty of examples out there on the market with striker fires that they have phenomenal triggers. I feel like that's something that could be improved. There's still a little bit of gush in there, a little bit of creep, but it's definitely less than a standard Glock trigger, so I will give them that. The slide is what I would expect from Shadow Systems. It is designed really, really well. There's a lot of serrations for multiple places to grip. You got them on the sides, you got them on top. Awesome. It's also optics cut, so you can run an optic on here if you would like. Right now, I'm not. I'm trying to run it at the just smallest configuration possible. Speaking of the irons are awesome. I really like them. It's got that anti-glare on the rear side with all those little serrations. On the front side, you've got the glow-in-the-dark contrast ring, so it's very easy for your eyes to pick up. This one is like a lime greenish kind of yellow contrast ring on there, but definitely solid irons for the CR920P. You really can't go wrong. They always do a good job there. The compensator is actually a tri-lug design, so rather than threading this on like you would most compensators on handguns and then using 2 secure screws, what they've done is they actually developed a little detent pin inside of here and a rotating locking mechanism. Now there's an upside and a downside to that, at least that I can foresee. One of those being, when we got to that 250 round mark and we decided to break this guy down and clean it, I noticed there's a lot of carbon buildup, especially around the lugs of the compensator. So that could lead to carbon locking in the future. And that is one thing that, especially if it happens and you're trying to pull this thing apart to clean it, is going to make you quite angry, and it's going to be quite a pain to get that carbon off and to actually get the compensator off so you can properly tear this thing down. The other thing too is that that detent, again, if the detent becomes carbon locked or it just gets gunked up and dirty to the point where you can't get anything in there to actually recess that detent, now you're running into the same issue where you can't get this thing off, you can't get the barrel out of there, and you can't properly break it down. Just keep that in mind. That is something that you probably want to pay attention to. Probably don't go too long without cleaning this guy if you do end up having one, especially to make sure that that carbon lock does not happen on the compensator and you're able to get it off. Worst comes to worst, you could always probably just soak the tip of this in some sort of solution in order to break up that carbon and then it come right off, and no worries, no harm done, all good. Now there is a benefit to that design. The nice thing is that you're not having to use any securing screws, which could destroy your threads, especially if you do have a threaded barrel. Once you've screwed down those securing screws, it can start to compress the threads, destroy them, which once you actually want to take that piece off or put something else on, it could affect the ability to do that. You might have to rethread a barrel because of it. It has happened in the past. It's not always going to happen, but it's just one of those things that they thought of and they went, you know what, why don't we change the design of that? Why don't we go with something that exists in some sort of facet, which is that tri-lug system, but we'll just change the securing method a little bit differently. So rather than screws, it perfectly fits down. It can only go on one way, and it eliminates a lot of potential issues that you could have with a compensator install. The other thing too about the compensator is that it really does work. I can definitely feel it working. It definitely can be seen working. Like I said, compared to the regular CR920, which I was really not a fan of, the CR920P, they solved a lot of the issues, and I think honestly it all just comes down to that compensator. It really does help keep this gun flat. It keeps it more enjoyable to shoot, and overall, I really like it, and I've really enjoyed carrying this for the past month and testing it, shooting it. It has been an awesome experience. So one of the things that I wish would change on the CR920P is the grip length. I feel like we've gotten to the point now where the 43X, the 48, the X macros, all of those subcompact category handguns are definitely more popular than the shorter versions. I think people just prefer a longer grip, whether you have small hands, medium hands, large hands, doesn't matter. Having a slightly larger grip, even on that subcompact genre, I think is more beneficial because it fits in your hand a lot better.
You have more of that backspace
In the palm filled out, and despite your hand size, it typically just works better and you have more control. I feel like one of the things they could have done is just make a 15-round magazine option that would extend that grip length out just a little bit, especially for people like me that are picky about those things. And I wouldn't be here talking about it saying that it's a bad thing. I do understand why they have the 10 and 13 round magazine options. It fits a lot of people's needs, especially in a lot of the states that have 10 round limits or 15 round limits like we do here in Colorado, which is a total infringement on your rights, and it is not based. I understand why they have those options. It's a good option to have, but overall, I just wish this was slightly bigger, or it just had other options in order to extend it out. I think it would make a huge difference, and I think it would be extremely beneficial. So, would I continue to carry this? Will I continue to carry this? Short answer, yes, I absolutely will. Keep in mind though, and I know we talked about this previously, it has a break-in period. So if you're talking about having a subcompact carry gun that you are going to basically put your trust in to protect your life, hopefully it never comes to that. Hopefully you never run into that situation. But when it does come down to it, keep in mind there's a break-in period, because if you take this gun right out of the box and you stick it in a holster and you decide to everyday carry that, and then you run into a situation that you don't want to be in, it's probably going to jam on you. And that's not going to be a good day. So definitely make sure that if you are going to maybe even look at one of these, keep that in mind. There's that break-in period. Definitely run at least a couple hundred rounds of ammo through it, especially because you should anyway. You should be training with this thing. You should be trying it, doing your holster draws, all that, especially because it is much harder than you think and it takes a lot of practice to get good at. Its overall price point comes in just under that $1,000 mark, so it is a little bit of a steep cost, but compared to a lot of what we're seeing nowadays with these handguns, subcompact and up, that are coming with compensators, it's really not that far off from a lot of the competition. And honestly, the most competitive handgun, at least to this one, would probably be the SIG X Macro. And the SIG X Macro compared to this one, I actually feel the difference with the compensator, whereas the X Macro, it was okay, it wasn't bad. I think the compensator definitely helped, but it had a lot to be desired. This one, it still has a few things that I think could be worked out that could be improved, but overall, I think as far as a subcompact with a compensator, this one is definitely one of the best ones on the market right now. POV, you're talking bad about SIG. People drop in from the skies, the doors just blow open. What's going on?
Thanks, ModTac. You had a range for us to go shoot on, and that was really, really kind. ModTac is pretty lit company.
ModTac is based.
They keep you from burning your hands. You should check out what they make. It's really cool.
They do have some awesome suppressor shields. They're made out of carbon fiber. They go on all sorts of different rifles, and they really, really work. They're definitely one of the best suppressor shield options out there.
We're big fans.
Big fans. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions about the CR920P, please leave us a comment down below. We really appreciate you guys watching. Also, keep in mind, July 29th, we are going to be having Shadow Systems out here at Triple J Armory for a demo day. You can try everything from the Shadow Systems lineup. We're also going to be giving away a CR920P. Details for that are going to be down in our Details for that are going to be down in the description below, so do make sure you check that out. And until next time, thank you so much. Bye.
Just start over completely. It sounds great at the beginning. Voice is just like, I don't know how to describe it, but really empty.
It's because I am empty, bitch.